Ep.70.
Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hits or Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV is draft season, man. This is where the offseason really starts. You know what I mean? This is how we get locked in. This is how we put together what should be the greatest build up to the 2024-25 season that we can, is seeing the next crop of guys come through.
100%. And it's going to be a heavy draft episode. Not only are we going to be talking about the prospects, but me and Jay are going to be pretending to be these GMs and try to draft and we're going to draft the entire NBA draft lottery. So we're going to be going through each pick, going for the 414, and we're going to see and we're going to predict how the draft plays out there. But man, we have stuff other than the draft as well, because there already have been some moves made before the draft even started, and we're going to talk about those as well. Especially a move that's close to Jay's home, man. He's gonna definitely talk about that in this episode. But yeah, before we get into those, we do have to plug our social medias. And to follow our individual socials, those links can be found in the description, at TV on Basketball, at the Knockdown J, and Routine Jumper. Those can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, remember to follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. If you're listening to this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. Jay, we got a lot to go into today.
Yeah, man. I was just telling TV after the podcast, before we started the podcast, like, honestly, this draft is going to be so unique because we don't have anybody that like stands out above the rest. We don't have a group of guys that you just can kind of lean on to carry your board. And because this is the first time me and him are both doing a mock draft, I think the draft is really going to start the minute one of us trips the other one up and has to make a decision on the fly. So it should be a really fun episode. Get our brains working.
100%. And we're going to get into that into that pretty soon.
Yeah.
But we have to give our residential Bulls fan the floor, because a trade has been made.
Yep.
A 1-for-1, by the way. We don't see 1-for-1 trades anymore in the NBA, guys, but we finally got one here. On Friday night, we had a trade between the Oklahoma City Thunder and Chicago Bulls, where Chicago Bulls send away Alex Caruso in exchange for OKC Thunder's Josh Giddey. That's the trade. I can't tell you anything more than that, but that's the trade. If you want to see my thoughts on this trade, I posted on the Hit Your Free Throws pod. But we didn't give our residential Bulls fan a chance to give his thoughts. So I'm going to give you the first few minutes of this episode. I'm going to give you the floor, Jay. What are your thoughts on your Bulls? Firstly, making their first trade in the field in like 2 years. We talked about this at the trade deadline where they should have made a deal. They haven't made a trade in 2 years, and they do it, and they get one of the best young talents in the league. Jay, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, okay, so first, I think the funniest thing is the way you phrase, like, we didn't give our resident Bulls fan a chance. Was it that we didn't give ourselves a chance, or did Jalen just duck smoke for a couple of days to kind of wrap his head around it?
He was trying. It was a coping time. It was coping time.
Nah, man, as King of the Fourth Quarter, Kenny Beecham once said on YouTube, you got to go through the 5 stages of grief first, before you can really contextualize trades like these. So let's kind of go through the context, go through the timeline of me as a Bulls fan figuring out this news. So I'm at work at the time, and I see the notification pop up that says that Alex Caruso has been traded for Josh Giddey. Now, obviously, the first thing I'm thinking is, wow, the Bulls are the team that strikes first. Just kind of as you mentioned beforehand, right? Yeah. A team that doesn't really make a lot of trades, at least not in recent memory, is the first team the minute that the finals is over, basically, to go ahead and set the standard for what the trade market may or may not look like this offseason. And the first move we make is for Alex Caruso going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the first thing I thought was what a lot of people probably thought: where the picks at? So I saw the notification.
Including myself. If you see the video, including myself, I was waiting for the picks.
Yeah. So I saw the ESPN pop up. I also have Bleacher Report on my phone as well. And NBA Twitter is like one of my main saved. Got to put the notification bell on for NBA Twitter for these when it comes to like Woj and Shams. The key guys. You know what I mean? And everything kept saying basically just Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, let me Google this out, see if they're like maybe this is just like the partial report. Because picks and stuff, usually that's where things get a little tricky. And I did some spot track looking as well to pair up with the regular Googles to just figure out what the heck was going on with this trade. And financially, they make enough where they basically broke even. And that's where the 5 stages start. Because the first thing I'm thinking is Oklahoma City has 8 billion picks, and we couldn't even get one of the sloppy second ones. Like, we couldn't even get one of the ones that just like, if it conveys, it's like great that OKC just has another first round pick late, late teens, early 20s. But like, are they really stressing it by that point in what will hopefully be like a dynastic run for them with the way they've built their young talent, right?
Yeah.
Even just getting one of like the, late teens, early 20s, just like in 2027 or something. You know what I mean? Just something that's like, not like, the cherry on top, because obviously trading away a player that arguably was like our second best player last season. Depends on how you view DeMar DeRozan's season last year. Obviously, depends on how you view Kobe White's season as well last year. But Alex Caruso, in terms of his overall consistency when on the floor, was like our second best player. And we traded him for Josh Giddey, who was quite literally played out of the rotation in the postseason by the second round just a few weeks ago. It felt like even.
Yeah.
Basically
a month ago.
Basically a month ago. This is fresh in people's mind that you went from being the starting off guard all season long to being played out of the rotation, where guys like Aaron Wiggins, and you go down the line, right? I think they had 2 or 3 different guys kind of really start to get a better tick because Josh Giddey just was not viable, right? And so now I ask myself the follow-up question of like, okay, so we know what Oklahoma City gets from this, right? We know what this is about. The whole point of them going after an Alex Caruso type is because they want to put themselves in a position where there's no way you can confidently attack a single player on the court out of the 5 guys that they have defensively. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the best passing lane point guards last year in terms of getting steals, also one of the best rim defending point guards last season, as a shot blocking guard, which we don't speak about too much these days. Then you have obviously Chet Holmgren as a rim defender. You have the Luguentz Dort. You go down the list of just the versatility they have in the wing with a Jalen Williams. Then you throw an Alex Caruso into the mix, and you have this like tenacious, 5-man defensive unit where like if they close with that group, they can score, they can guard, they can switch, they can do anything they want.
Bro, it's a poor man Boston Celtics if you really think about it.
There was a joke on Twitter that I saw that said the bald man plus braids braids combo was like maybe the new defensive backcourt demons of the league. I think they showed I think it was Derek White and Drew Holiday.
Now it's Lou Dort and Caruso.
next to Lou Dort and Alex Caruso, which I thought was hilariously accurate. I also saw a ton of videos or pictures on Twitter that just kept showing like Alex Caruso next to the Elmer Fudd from Space Jam
Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and I just can't unsee that either. But basically everything from memes to on-court production said Alex Caruso is going to be a perfect fit in the Oklahoma City Thunder's uniform, right? And he's played through the Oklahoma City G League upbringing as well, back when he was initially coming into the league. Something else to also throw out. Now, obviously, for the most part, the organization is significantly different, but some of the head people are still the head people, right? So that obviously means a lot as well, with them being quote unquote familiar with his game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we get to the Bulls aspect, and we have to ask ourselves, so what does Josh Giddey bring to the table? Well, the first thing that stood out to me is we have to pay the guy. That's the first thing that shows up. So with the fact that we're going to have to pay him because he's up for a rookie contract extension, the first thing I'm telling myself is the Bulls must truly believe in the upside of what Josh Giddey can be. Now, what is the upside of Josh Giddey? The upside of Josh Giddey is when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't on the floor, I think he had a A 2-month stretch. I think we even talked about it on the podcast, even.
Yeah.
Where the dude was like 17, 8, and 8, or somewhere around there, 17, 8, and 5, somewhere around there. And he had gotten his 3-ball up to about 37, 38%. Low volume, but he had gotten to about 37, 38%.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I have to assume that AR up in the front office for the Chicago Bulls must have cut on the tape for that month-long stretch, and he saw some things that he liked. And maybe he thought that Josh Giddey, as an on-ball creator with more opportunity, because obviously he doesn't get nearly as much opportunity with the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was even discussed in the press conference for Oklahoma City ahead that Josh Giddey kind of requested the trade after they had a conversation about the idea of their team being most optimized with him coming off the bench to maximize said on-ball creation, right? So the first thing that comes with that, outside of dealing with the fact that we have to pay him, is what does this mean for the rest of the team? I think Kobe can go back to playing the 2. He just had the best.
I was gonna say, do you want him to?
He just had the best season of his career, which makes me fearful that although he can play the 2, we are not maximizing him. Can he play it? I do believe that. It will be actualized the way we saw last season without Zach LaVine on the floor. I fear that won't be the case. And seeing regression from Kobe White also makes me fearful, because he's a guy we soon have to pay. That's going to make him go into that offseason having to make a real call about what his future looks like with the Chicago Bulls. Then we go to Zach LaVine. There's like a 95% chance that Zach LaVine gets traded, and it's not going to be for the kind of value a Bulls fan would hope for, right? But Zach LaVine is an ideal player as an off guard next to a Josh Giddey with the skill set that he has as a three-point shooter and as a driver. Only problem is we can't have a starting lineup that has Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and Zach LaVine, because who guards? So then that problem arose. Then the DeMar DeRozan aspect came in. He denied an extension / a re-up for 2 years, $80 million. That's $40 million a year. I have to believe that he's either planning on coming back to the table, looking for a 3-year contract, or he believes there is someone else, like the Clippers, like the Lakers, that may have a 3-year contract on the books for him. Because for me, based off the fact that he denied $40 million a year, he must be looking at job security from the perspective of years as opposed to the big money. And not job security as if like DeMar DeRozan could like lose his job per se, but you know what I mean. He's getting into that upper ages of NBA career, and securing long-term guaranteed money it becomes much more of a priority than short-term balloon payments, right? So I think he's looking for a 3-year deal, and that means he's either coming back to the table to the Bulls, or he has a deal somewhere else that's going to line up. But let's say DeMar DeRozan does get brought back. I don't like the fit next to Josh Giddey from that perspective. Whether he plays the 3 or the 4, the mid-range shooting that he provides comes mainly from on-ball creation. But you don't trade your second or third best player in Alex Caruso to a Josh Giddey who you are going to have to pay this following offseason if the goal is to put the ball in Josh Giddey's hands and see him create. So it's counterproductive. The same way the Kobe White aspect of it almost is counterproductive to what we saw Kobe White do last year. Steps back. So everything spells to the Bulls got finessed, they fleeced themselves, and they're banking on internal development to work in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before, which is worrisome.
Yes.
This is where the positivity part comes out. Like I said, I had to go through all 5 stages of grief. You didn't heard all of it. I had to literally make sense of where Josh fit in all of this. And a lot of it is not good. Here's the flip side to it. DeMar will probably walk. I genuinely believe that he denied 2 years, $80 million because he has something else in the bag where he can secure a 3-year deal, maybe even a 4-year deal, depending on who the team is, which obviously he is going to prioritize. Zach LaVine is going to be traded. I don't think that part is debatable. I literally think that that is like probably one of the most understood aspects of this offseason, to the point that it's not a if, it's a when, and for how much. So there's that. Then, to be completely honest with you, I don't think that we're going to retain Patrick Williams either, which is another thing that I didn't really bring up earlier, but I do think is going to factor in. Nikola Vucevic will be an expiring contract, if I'm not mistaken. We resigned him for 2 years, 2 years, $80 million ourselves.
It was a 2-year deal.
It was 2 years.
No, 3 years 80. It was 3 years 80.
It was 3 years 80 because I think it was a little bit over 20 a year.
Yeah.
So he's going to have 2 years left on his contract. There are teams that are in the need for a center.
Yeah.
I see that might be something we can move off of. Not the smartest thing in the world, but considering that Andre Drummond practically outplayed him as our backup center last year, it's going to be something that has to be brought up. The bright side of this is that I think that Josh Giddey being the person we traded for and understanding the components that come with that make me believe that Arturas Karnisovas is enacting a stealth tank under the nose of the Chicago Bulls brass. I think that the Chicago Bulls brass up top, the owners, they want to be good, but we can't. Financially, we can't really improve. And from a draft capital standpoint, we don't have a lot to work with. So we have to retain it, and we have to make the most out of the situation that we have. And we understand that DeMar DeRozan might be too expensive. The Zach LaVine thing is too attainable. Patrick Williams has not shown us enough to be asking for 4 years, $200 million, which is what was reported. Right?
Yeah.
I think this is Arturas's way of finally doing something that I don't think any GM underneath Chicago Bulls brass has been able to do since the 90s, which is actually build the basketball team.
I'm just glad y'all finally made a move. Honestly.
And honestly, that's the capitalization of it all. That's why I think that the stealth tank is being activated, because for us, it's not just that we made the move, TV, because the move is ass. Let's be honest. The move is ass.
It's pretty bad.
It's bad. Because we should have been able to at least get like a 2027, 2028 first round pick or something. Yeah. Remember, it was reports that said that they denied multiple first round pick opportunities at the deadline for Alex Caruso in pursuit of trying to make the play-in tournament. Mm-hmm. So this trade is ass, all things considered. But I think because of the way the trade was enacted, that this is actually the stealth signal to Bulls fans. We are finally going to start making the rip around. We're finally going to start doing the tear down, but we have to do it in a way that shows the owners that there's no other thing we could do but the moves that have been given to us.
100%. I mean, like we mentioned was at the Raptors earlier in the season. My team, we finally picked a direction. Yeah. I think this is the Bulls sign. They're finally choosing a direction, which is something we've been asking for years now.
I hope
so.
But
hopefully this is actually like something that's going to formulate into an actual sort of rebuilding.
Yeah.
I mean, the Raptors are already in that process. I think the Bulls, same with the Raptors, kind of did it a year or two too late, but better late than never. So
that part. Yes, that's another part of it to really factor in, is just the timing of it all. I apologize to podcast listeners if that felt like way too much of a ramble, but that's why I couldn't do this on TikTok just out the gate. It's because I really had to go down this list and just ask myself, like, is there a way I can justify a Josh Giddey jersey being in my house? That's basically
you don't have to get his jersey, Brad. You don't have to get his jersey, man.
Yeah, it was just I was struggling with that. But like I said, I think the bright side of it is this might be the stealth tank that we need to finally just like pivot. Now, they still have a lot of work to do. The Josh Giddey trade, if as a standalone, is terrible. But if it comes with other components down the line, it could slowly but surely really open some stuff up. So we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited to see what the Bulls could do now. I mean, it's not like they have like the worst assets in the world, but at the same time, like it's not a lot to work with. But
Yeah.
again, any sort of like restart is good for this team. So I'm glad to see it. But yeah, let us know what you guys think down below about the Alex Caruso trade. If you want to see again my full thoughts on it, you can check the TikTok and check out our TikTok. But yeah, residential Bulls fan, I'm glad you're able to go through this episode, going through all 5 stages, and really letting it all out there.
Yeah, man. It definitely was a different experience to be a Bulls fan during a trade. That was probably the weirdest part about it, was that this wasn't like the resident Bulls fan gets upset with a signing that the Bulls just hit you with from left field. This was like them actually making a trade for the first time in like what feels like an eon. Yeah. And the feelings still end up being the same.
Yeah. 100%. But yeah, let us know what you guys think down below about the trade. All right, Jay, time for the 2024 NBA draft.
This is crazy.
It's crazy. You've seen us do our own version of drafts, but this is us putting on our GM cap on, looking at the states of the teams that we're drafting for, and really trying to see how this draft is going to play out.
Yeah.
You know how these drafts go. We're going to go back and forth with this. Jay gets the odd numbers, I get the even numbers. So, like the NBA drafts that we usually do, Jay gets the first overall pick. But let's see how this is going to play out. Because, like we mentioned, we have that whole pool of players we're going to draft from. But it's going to be really interesting to see if there's a route that we don't expect the other person to go, and then we have to pivot on our own pick. So, it's going to be really interesting. Jay, how do you feel about not really doing our own sort of draft, but kind of being in the GM shoes here?
Okay, so I think that's a great place to start with this NBA draft in terms of what we're doing as a mock draft prior to the draft being on Wednesday. So this is 2 days away from when we're recording this. You guys will see this tomorrow. So basically you'll see it the day before the draft.
Yeah.
We are doing this from the perspective of what we would do while also factoring in intel. Because at the end of the day, a mock draft is partially about wanting to be right? Yes. That's obviously a very big factor of all of this, is despite the fact that you can go through 8,000 scenarios of who you think the best fit is where, there is also an aspect of, but what do the teams actually want? And so we're going to try our best to factor those in. And I think that's really interesting in a draft like this, especially me being put in the position of playing the Atlanta Hawks, which in this mock draft, I am going to go with it as if Atlanta is going to make the pick. Because I didn't have any trades that I thought made a ton of sense. There were a few that I thought were kind of in the weeds, but nothing that really stood out to me. And I think that it just is going to make it easier. Now, when we get further down the draft board, things will be interesting because this is where the GM hat really kicks in. Because again, I mentioned this earlier at the start of the show. The person who makes the first pivot is going to be the person who sets the rest of the board, as any draft is.
Yes.
Right? And so that's going to be the interesting part, is to see who deviates from the norm compared to, what we've seen, what we think, and then how does the other person adjust their board to that? That's going to be the most interesting part.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into this draft. Again, this is not like the previous draft where we have some Victor Wembanyama where it's like a crazy obvious number one.
Right.
Where we have honestly, it's not even like we have like a Brandon Miller or a Scoot Henderson where the 2 and 3 are pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. It's going to be kind of a little bit of a mixed bag here. And maybe some guys who are maybe projected outside the top 10 might make their way higher up in the draft. Who knows? Yeah. But we're going to do what's in the best interest of this team. And honestly, what we think as well would be like a best place for a lot of these guys. So, Jay, going to open the floor to you. With the first overall pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks select?
The Atlanta Hawks are going to select Zachary Ricochet with the first overall pick.
Okay.
And I think the pitch for Zachary at number 1 is the fact that obviously, first off, the intel says that Alex Sarr is kind of targeting the Washington Wizards at number 2. It sounds like he's pinned there. Obviously, that's up to you when we get to that point. But let's talk about Zachary for a second. Zachary is 6'9", 200 pounds, offensive wing, has defensive chops, showed a lot of different versatilities, but obviously is a guy that I think is still a little light, both physically and in terms of his overall development. This is a guy who is going to be a bit of a projecty guy, despite the fact that at number one, there's not a ton of superstar upside. There's a lot of translatability in terms of what he may be able to bring to the table. 3 and D wing is obviously the archetype, and it's an archetype that doesn't grow on trees, but it's also an archetype we just saw win the NBA Finals, right?
Yeah.
Now, the projection for what I've seen for Zachary Richardson at his best is more like what we saw with Tobias Harris with the LA Clippers in terms of offensive shot creation, overall ability on the wing, maybe a little bit more defensive upside if he can really start to kind of flesh out his body a little bit.
Yeah, he has to bulk up. He needs to
bulk up. It's going to be one of the more important things. His size from a frame perspective and the 3-point shooting consistency are going to be the two things that are the most important. I think he can shot create, and I think he can generate off the ball, not as well as on the ball, but I think he can shot create off the ball as well. I think his biggest boons are the fact that A, he can generate in more than one way. And B, I think that if he can increase his frame, he can be a real 3-and-D wing. The upside for him, for Atlanta specifically, is whether they go with Trae Young, they go with DeJounte, or they go with both when we go into this season. Let's say Atlanta makes no trades. We've seen everything that gives us intel to say either Trae Young will not be on this team or DeJounte Murray will not be on this team by the start of the season. But let's put it in perspective that is an option, or that they both end up on the team by the start of the season, right? Either way, Zachary Richardson, conceptually in terms of what his overall skill set is, can play next to those guys.
Yeah. I think honestly it's a good pick either way. I mean, he started really like jumping off like boards like as of the last couple of weeks. It felt like it was outside for the longest time, and then he started shooting up boards. And for what I see from him is this man is dangerous in terms of open floor play. When he gets a steal, he starts running. He has the athleticism. He has the takeoff ability. He is a great 3-and-D sort of wing. He has kind of that good basis. Obviously, he needs to bulk up. My worry with him is how he's going to operate in a half-court setting, because he is heavily relied on his athleticism, ability to like make plays on the open court. Like I like his like dribbling, the way he handles the ball when it comes to making decisions like in the fast break, because like he has a solid playmaker as well. But how effective is he going to be in the half-court setting? Especially because he's not going to get the ball much. How can he be effective off the ball, and how he's going to be able to like run set plays, and how he's going to get himself open, and also just be able to make plays for others when he doesn't really have the ball in his hands. I think he's going to be a good prospect. Again, it's not like it's going to be like a surefire number one unlike previous years, but I think that he has like all the right tools, especially if you want to keep either Trae Young or DeJounte Murray around. He would be a great guy next to him. But I think that there's still like a lot in his game. Like you said, he's kind of still a project type player, even though he is like a number one overall pick. I still think there's a lot for him to work on. But I think that his fit with the Atlanta Hawks, especially having a good point guard next to him, either in DeJounte, Trae Young, is going to be really important to his development.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of like put a pin on that too. You mentioned his athleticism in the open floor. The athleticism doesn't show up in the same way in the half court as you mentioned beforehand. Yes. So that's going to be the part that's really important for him, because he's not some super athlete. He's not one of those guys that's going to be able to pop out and make easy options for himself using his athleticism. It's going to be creating off the ball. It's going to be creating on ball when given those opportunities. I think next to a Trae Young and or a DeJounte Murray, it's going to open up the floor for him. The biggest thing that's going to get him minutes is his ability to shoot the three ball. According to what we've seen, the stats say he can be a 38% three-point shooter. The question is, how real is it? That's the real thing. That's going to be really important for this Atlanta Hawks team, is that three ball has to be real, because that's going to be a defining skill for him. Because again, the athleticism doesn't jump off the page. His overall shot diet is one that we still have to kind of gauge, because on this Atlanta Hawks team, he's not going to have the same kind of open freedoms. Not to say that overseas he was like getting the ball 24/7 either, but it's going to be a change dynamic in terms of how many opportunities he gets on ball. His game is going to have to open up a lot. Like you mentioned beforehand, the project aspect of this definitely is glaring. There's things you like, but there's things that are going to show up early and often that are going to tell us about how playable he really is on a team that, as we know right now, still is trying to win basketball games at a high
Yes.
level. That's going to be super important because the Atlanta Hawks do still want to win from what we know.
100%. But yeah, Zachary Richer is the first overall pick going to the Atlanta Hawks so far.
Yeah.
I get the number 2 overall pick, and with the number 2 overall pick over here, the Washington Wizards select Alex Sarr. I got to go with Alex Sarr here. Seeing his tape and seeing just the way he's able to play, I liked his all-around ability. And I think the most important aspect here, especially on the Washington Wizards team, who are terrible defensively and who have a bunch of shot chuckers on their team, is he's going to establish a defensive presence, which is sorely needed on that Washington Wizards team. I see Alex Sarr kind of being like a Jaren Jackson type model, maybe a little bit stronger, so maybe he is a better one-on-one defender than Jaren Jackson, but someone who has an improving three-point shot, someone who stands at, some people say 7 feet, but he's like 7'1", 7'2", and who has a 7'5" wingspan. I think someone with that and also his athletic ability so far, I think can provide a really good interior presence for the Washington Wizards. And even though he's not, again, he's probably the number 1 talent in this draft, but he has showcased, little bits and pieces of him being able to handle the ball in the open floor, being able to, not only just go for a pick and roll, but also hit the 3 at some time. So there's a lot of growth being able to his game, but you could see a little bit of everything here. But you can also see already in his play shades of an elite defender, which I think is something that Washington sorely needs. If you have that impact there, and then you can still get stuff offensively. I mean, as we've seen in a Jaren Jackson Jr., then I think Alex Sarr would be the perfect fit to put alongside Jordan Poole and Kuzma, what you have right now. But of course, that's going to change as the seasons go along.
So I think the thing that stands out with Alex Sarr, obviously, is the fact that there's a lot of upside where there's no real flaw in his game across the board. He's not great at anything, but he's good at a lot of things.
Right, yeah.
So I think that's one of those aspects to the Washington Wizards where you just need guys who can play. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I think the most important thing about a rebuild, especially for a team like Washington that's not going to do crazy well in free agency, they need to be able to hit on these blue chip aspects when it comes, these blue chip prospects when it comes to their bites at the apple in the draft. Alex Sarr is a guy who shows the athleticism to be able to rim defend, has shown ability in short spurts to be able to shoot the ball, shows on-ball creation, gives you the belief that he maybe could play between the 4 and the 5. He is more of a true 5.
Yeah, but he could play. He has abilities of playing the 4 for sure.
He has the ability to play the 4, and I think something that might be really important is when you look at this Wizards team, a 3-4-5 man lineup of Koulibaly, Deni Avdija, and Alex Sarr could be kind of crazy.
Yes, 100%. And the good thing about Alex Sarr, especially and what I like about him, is that he can set a culture there. Like the way he plays can really establish sort of like, if there's one thing about this Wizards team, and it's not about them last year, especially like not having that interior presence, that it's going to be tough now to score on them. When you have a 7'1" freaking French demigod. I mean, you've heard that, you heard that before, haven't you? Right. But someone who's there, who's going to be like contesting at the rim, being able to be physical down low, it's something that the Wizards just desperately need. And like with a team that's like played with so much finesse, you need someone like to kind of just set the tone down low.
Yeah, I think that's really important because the way the Wizards are going to have to go about this rebuild is obviously, it's going to take one prospect at a time. This is not one of those things where I think they can afford to be able to speed run this. And I think that the talent internally, the development is going to be so important to getting them back into not just like making playoff contention, but like let's talk about just making the play-in tournament and like slowly progressing back into being like a viable team in the Eastern Conference. Koulibaly had a really strong season last year in my projections based off of like what he was able to do on both sides of the ball, specifically on defense. We saw a lot from him as a defensive threat on ball and off ball at the wing position last year. Deni Avdija has continued to improve as a wing defender and has shown his versatility to guard twos, threes, fours, and he guarded a little bit of five. Not great, but he guarded a little bit of five, which showed that he has some versatility across the scale. And that's something that they can also tap into. And we know about his on-ball ability, not necessarily as a shooter, but as a passer. Deni Avdija as a decision maker, especially in the open court, is something we've seen him slowly but surely grow better and better at. Alex Sarr, I think, is another athlete with real tools that can really help open up this Washington Wizards team. Now, they have to make a decision on Tyus, and they have to make a decision on what they're going to do in terms of Kyle Kuzma long term.
Yes.
They're locked into Jordan Poole. There's no getting out of that one right now.
Yeah, 100%.
But those other two guys are two guys that are going to determine a lot of where the rest of this progression goes coming into the 2024-25 season. Tyus, interesting to see what they're willing to pay. Kyle, what can you get for him? It sounds like the Kings are interested again. Obviously, there are other teams that could use a wing that Kyle Kuzma can fit on. It'll be interesting what they decide to do with that. I love Alex Sarr to Washington, though. And I like the fact that he's fighting to go to Washington. How often do you hear stuff like that?
100%, man. I think he's going to be a great fit there, and I think it's something that, like, kind of the position of, like, most need for the Washington Wizards. So I think he would be a great fit over there. All right, Jay, moving on to you now with the number 3 overall pick made by the Houston Rockets. Who are they going to select?
TV, I think, I could be wrong, but I think I'm about to throw our first monkey wrench into the draft.
Okay.
Every draft board, every mock draft I've read has Reed Sheppard going to the Houston Rockets.
Yes.
I can't do it, though. I can't do it.
Interesting.
When I look at their when I look at their backcourt depth, they have Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Amin Thompson. You go down the list, these are all young guys, and a lot of them need, except for Fred VanVleet, obviously. But these are young guys who need the ball to operate. Jalen Green needs the ball to operate. Cam Whitmore, we saw most of his highlight plays on the ball. He showed some off ball movement processes as well. But Amin Thompson can't really score off ball. Like, that's not really his way unless he's a slasher, obviously. So the on ball reps, the overall development at the guard position, there's a lot of depth there. Yes, Reed Sheppard obviously opens up the floor in terms of adding another 3-point shooter. But that's just a lot of guys to operate with. And if you just take the pulse of Rockets fans, they're tired of hearing that a guard is getting mocked to their team when they have like 8 billion guards on the roster. So I'm also going to take a pulse of what Rockets fans think as well. But that front court is light TV. I'm taking Donovan Clingan at number 3.
Wow. So you want him and Şengün to start in the front court?
So I don't think they're going to start next to each other. That's another thing that I think is important. This Rockets team is good. And they're a team that if you listen in on, they're aiming for very interesting guys this offseason to take swings at in terms of like really trying to get better this offseason. 2 of the guys that they're looking to make real trade swings at are Jimmy Butler, who sounds kind of available. Yeah. And the Houston Rockets have tried to go after in the past. Granted, Chris Paul and James Harden were on the team at the time, but nonetheless are associated, and Kevin Durant. Now, I think they're less likely to get Kevin Durant, obviously. I think Jimmy Butler is interesting, despite the fact that it sounds like Jimmy Butler might not be in their grasp. I also think that the Heat aren't going to just send Jimmy Butler wherever he wants to go if he is actually going to be traded this offseason. So Houston could be an interesting one because Houston has draft picks.
Yes.
Donovan Clingan can be the 5-man behind Alperen Şengün and give them a crazy defensive front court like opportunity where Donovan Clingan can be a rim defender next to Jabari Smith. He can be a rim defender next to Tari Eason. You have to think about their guard rotation, TV. Outside of Fred VanVleet and Amin Thompson, There's not a lot of defense on this roster. Now the numbers don't speak to that. Defensive rating wise, the Houston Rockets were a top 10 defense last year. Dylan Brooks should be spoken for as well, I should say.
Yeah.
But Alperen Sengun is not a well-known rim defender. He is not a paint packer by any sense from a defensive perspective. Donovan Clingan is easily the best rim defender in this draft.
He is. But...
Houston is ready now, and jamming up the guard position at a spot where they are pretty much as deep as it gets in basketball right now, especially in terms of young depth. I think that Donovan Clingan fits relatively well because I don't think they plan on staying on Steven Adams long. I'll even give you this. I don't think you trade for Steven Adams for no reason. But I think that if you get Donovan Clingan as a cheaper version, it also makes Steven Adams, who obviously came to your team injured, it makes him expendable as a guy who also is going to be considered as a high commodity on the trade block. They didn't trade for Steven Adams for just no reason at all. And Donovan Clingan embodies a lot of the things that they would want out of a Steven Adams at a backup 5 position.
I like Donovan Clingan in this job. To the Rockets is really interesting. I feel like Reed Sheppard is like the perfect guy there. Mostly because I know they have a deep like guard rotation, but let's be honest. Fred VanVleet, as much as he is like a good point guard and again a good leader for them, he is not their long-term solution at the point guard position.
That's a good point as well. Having
Reed Sheppard there, albeit he's going to be being a backup to Fred VanVleet for the time being, provides him as a good TJ McConnell-esque like point of attack defender, someone who's aggressive there, who can like, even though he's a shorter guy, he's able to keep up with a lot of guys, has that elite 3-point shooting ability and good playmaking. I think getting someone like Reed Sheppard and then honing in his skills with the veteranship of Fred VanVleet feels like a match made in heaven for the Houston Rockets.
Now, I think so. This is where I'll throw out my Reed Sheppard pitch because at the end of the day, we also want to be right. So I'm picking Donovan Clingan. This is Jay's just breakdown of where he thinks the Rockets are. But if we're going with what we think is going to be right based off intel and everything else, I think Reed Sheppard is the pick just based off everything we've seen. What's the pitch for Reed Sheppard being taken at 3? He's obviously one of the best shooters in the draft. Instantly translates from that perspective. Yeah. One thing that stands out about their guard rotation is that the point guard spot. Yes, Fred VanVleet is the starter. Aaron Holiday is currently slotted as the second string point guard. I think that Reed Sheppard can outplay him from that perspective, just with his shooting ability alone, and the fact that he is a bit of a gritty defender, so to speak, for the fact that he's 6'1", somewhere around there.
He's like 6'1", 6'2", yeah.
So he definitely will fit as a backup point guard pretty well if we're talking about having to outplay Aaron Holiday. I do think he also can fit well next to a Jalen Green or a Cam Whitmore, and to a lesser degree an Amen Thompson. I think his spacing does give the Rockets a lot to work with, to the point that if they went with Reed Sheppard, I wouldn't be against it. I think if you talk about match made in heaven, as you mentioned before, Reed probably fits better to an extent to Houston if the belief is that you believe that after Fred leaves, because mind you, he was only signed for a balloon payment of like a crazy 2-year deal.
Yeah.
Once Fred VanVleet is done, you have to believe, though, that Reed Sheppard is a point guard. And that is my biggest question about him moving forward. Now, that's not a huge enough question to deter drafting him, but it is an important question when thinking about a guard rotation where Jalen Green, like I said, Cam Whitmore, and Amen Thompson are all guys that you want to put the ball in their hands.
But he's a great catch and shoot. Like, he can move off the ball and play like catch and shoot 3. I think they even with that, like, yes, he probably would be best utilized on the ball, but he's shown in college that he could play that catch and shoot 3 role very, very well.
But so I think at point guard, he's going to have – I think he's good as an off-ball player. That's not my problem. I think he's good as an off-ball player on this roster. The question is, remember, now we're talking about playing point guard, though. Yeah. And we're talking about playing point guard in the West. You can't just be an off-ball point guard in this league against that crop.
But what's stopping them from using Alperen Sengun as like a Jokic type? Like, what's the
And that's the big question:
Yeah.
is Alperin able to take that next step at the forward/center position that we saw a lot of strides from last season? Obviously, prior to him going down later in the year.
Yeah.
Good point.
But
Good point.
I will say quickly on Donovan Clingan, I think that he is one of the best, like he is the best rim protector in this draft. What I like about him is that what they used him in UConn for was those dribble handoffs in the mid post area, reminding me a little bit of Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox type vibes. You know what I mean? Obviously, he doesn't have the post game that Domantas Sabonis says. Is like one of the best post players in the league, but as a great role guy, someone who is able to make that like secondary pass too, like the hockey assist, the second pass, kicking it out to the shooters. He's great at that. And it's standing at 7'1", 7'2", same thing as Alex Sarr. You just don't want to be going into the paint against that, especially with his defensive repertoire. So I think it's a good fit, and being next to Steven Adams will help him in terms of like that whole like mentorship type thing. I just think again, there's a little bit congestion there, especially if you want to have like Şengün kind of like take over the team in a Jokic type role. But I do understand the need for like some interior defense, especially because Alperen Şengün does foul a lot too. So
true.
like,
I think just like as a last point, you mentioned the Nikola Jokic role thing. Who's Denver's backup center?
It's DeAndre.
And that's one of the biggest things that plagued them in the postseason is when he went off the floor, they had nobody viable to run the five. And it really hurt them. And I think that's something else that if you want to look at Alperen as that offensive hub, you have to have somebody who can be viable on offense, but provide something at a high level off the bench in those minutes where Alperen's not on the floor. And you mentioned the high foul rate also. Having a crazy defensive lineup that could include Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith, Donovan Clingan. Who I'm not saying who's scoring, because obviously, buckets can be had, but good luck. That's going to be a really hard lineup to score against, which is an interesting little wrinkle considering this was a team that when they played at their best, it was because they were one of the better defensive teams in basketball last year.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, but I think like Donovan Clingan could like mean a lot to that team as well. So I don't mind that pick. So you have Donovan Clingan going at number 3. Whew. Now again, that throws a wrench in my number 4 because I had the Spurs going with a couple of options here. Obviously, they're in need of a point guard, but now that Reed Sheppard is on the board, I was thinking about going into that route, but I think I'm gonna stick. You know what? I'm gonna go with Reed Sheppard. I was gonna switch it up a little bit, but I think that Reed Sheppard would just be kind of the perfect point of attack 3-point shooting guy that they're looking for. Because let's think about the players that they want to keep around: Sohan, Devin Vassell, Victor Wembanyama. Some of them are decent shooters. Devin Vassell, Victor Wembanyama can improve in their shooting as well. But they don't have that true knockdown shooter who's available to move off ball. And what Reed Sheppard brings as well is the defensive acumen that they need on the perimeter. I think that he would be a great fit in the San Antonio Spurs system. And I think that him and Victor Wembanyama can create a really nice pick and roll duo, maybe pick and pop duo as well. And plus, we talked about earlier, he can move effectively off the ball. I think now that Reed Sheppard is available at the number 4 position, I think the Spurs do take him there.
And TV, for context, when you think about it, San Antonio was tied, ironically, with your Spurs at 34 points. With your Raptors at 34.7% from 3. That was bottom 4 of the league.
They need shooting.
Needs shooting bad. And Reed Sheppard, like I mentioned beforehand, one of the better shooters in the draft, arguably the best shooter in the draft, depending on where you come from. And point guard is still something they really need help with. If you couldn't tell when they were running Jeremy Sohan at point guard for like the first 20 games of the year, before they finally decided to give Trey Jones a little bit more on-ball reps. And even then, you could tell Pop is still a little slow to wanting to give Trey the keys. So I think creating a real point guard competition there in San Antonio is going to be interesting to unlock.
Competition is good.
Definitely.
Competition is great. I think Reed Sheppard, again, gives them like a different element that Trey Jones is. Of course, Trey Jones is the better playmaker between the two at this point in their careers, but Reed Sheppard could definitely develop into that. But of course, the 3-point shooting difference can really catapult him into that starting lineup as well. So I think Reed Sheppard going there number 4 would be great. If he falls to the Spurs, that would be a fantastic get for them. Yeah. Jay, at number 5, the Detroit Pistons, unfortunately, back-to-back 5th overall picks in the draft. With the players on the board, who do you have them selecting?
For Detroit at 5, I'm gonna go with Matas Buzelis from G
Yeah.
League Ignite. This one is relatively kind of etched in stone. After kind of going off the rails a little bit with the Rockets, I'm gonna realign back with some of the intel. And this is one of those, I think they have an inside guy that's kind of like has a relationship within Detroit also with Matas's like agents and stuff like that, or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of intel that kind of puts Matas in the position to say like, this is a place he's not only going to be comfortable with, but it seems like they're kind of comfortable with what he brings to the table. Another thing that's going to be just like super important is just like how his comps play out. So the comps that I heard is the best case scenario for him is like a Franz Wagner type.
I see like Franz Wagner, Hedo Turkoglu, like kind of mix.
I think that's what the upside of him is. See, the flip side of it is I've also heard comparisons that say he plays a lot like who we thought Alexei Pokusevsky was supposed to be, which is also interesting because even though that was a high upside guy, remember Minnesota swung on him high. I think they took him like 17 or something like that.
Top 20 for sure.
Yeah, they took Alexei pretty high. So with that being the case, like there's a real big gap between like what we see as overall productivity and what his like real high upside is, right? The 3 ball is going to be key. We saw him shoot 43% in like high school, the back half of high school, and there was something that was something that really shot him up boards coming into this draft cycle. Then he shot about 27% while with G League Ignite. So the question is, which one is he? If he's closer to 43%, which obviously is insane in this league, but if he could be like a 38%, 37, 38% three-point shooter,
that'd be good.
It really changes the dynamic of how you view him. If that 27% is more of who he really is, it really, really diminishes his overall value on a team like Detroit, where you have very minimal spacing as it is. So he's going to have to be able to space the floor. Obviously, that's going to be a very big tell throughout a lot of this draft process is guys are going to have to be able to shoot the 3 ball to get on the floor. Like you have to be able to shoot the 3 ball or guard, preferably both, but you're going to have to be able to do one or the other at a significantly high level to be able to get on the floor because this draft class doesn't have any high upside guys for the most part who are going to like really like strike while the iron is hot in terms of like superstar potential. Nobody is oozing with superstar aspects in this draft. So guarding and 3-point shooting are going to be the direction. Matas, I think, is going to be the 3 ball. The on-ball creation, I like some of the things he's able to do in terms of passing the ball. Really good vision, really good feel for the game. I think can create for himself, and I think can create for others. But that spacing aspect, because I think he's a 4 in the NBA. I think he's a 4 with three potential.
Yeah.
Right? Because the thing is at 6'8", he really is built more like a 3. But I think his skill set on ball is not fleshed out enough for him to be considered a wing just yet. It's going to be interesting to see where a Detroit Pistons team slots in the pecking order if they were to take him. I think that the high upside of shooting the ball is going to be the thing. Here's something that I think is really important too. Who's the guy they brought in from the Spurs? The 3-point shooting coach. It's like something Frank.
I forgot his name, but I know who you're talking about, and he's like apparently like a guru with this stuff.
Yeah. This is why he could be a really interesting fit there. Is because when you think about Asor and you think about him, if these guys can be viable 3-point shooters, this Detroit Pistons team looks way better just off of internal development alone.
Yeah.
Before they do anything with the cap space they have. So I'll look up his name while you're doing your pick, and obviously that'll be something that comes up. But
yeah, for sure. That's a great pick for the Pistons, in my opinion. What I like about Matas, like specifically, is again, you talk about his feel for the game. I just love how much he understands spacing, like going to the open areas and making sure that he gets like open opportunities either from 3 or even like in the dunker spot. This guy is obviously like finishing in through contact is something he has to work on, but this guy is low key jumpy, bro. If you've seen some of his highlights at the G League, this guy can get up there. And if he builds a little bit of muscle, maybe that can help him finishing to contact. But I like his all-around game and his ability to play next to Kate Cunningham. If this 3-point shooting coach can really get through to Montez, then he's going to be a real asset for this Pistons team, who are desperately needing a big wing, especially with what's the name of the guy?
Fred Vincent. I said Frank. Fred Vincent.
Ben Vincent. Yeah. You remember, like, he's like a 3-point shooting guru, one of the best like shooting coaches in the league. But yeah, they drafted a couple guards recently. They need some like really wing help, especially because they kind of have their center position kind of locked down with Jalen Duren. Mateus Buzdelis would definitely fit there. So I like that pick at number 5.
Can I ask you a question real quick about Detroit, real fast, before you do your pick? We still don't even know who's going to be the one like coaching this team to help make this draft pick. That's another thing that's a little concerning, considering Kenny Atkinson just signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers as of us recording this as well, right? That's tough.
All I'm saying is that I thought they would have that kind of settled by now, but they don't. So this could go pretty bad in a most Detroit Pistons way possible. But hopefully, like the guy that they bring in kind of already like aligns with their values that they have already. Yeah. But yeah, Buzelis is a good pick. I honestly like before like you switched up on the Reed Shepherd thing, I had him going to the Spurs. So I actually like that pick over there for the Pistons. Okay, number 6 now. I have the Charlotte Hornets. And with the number 6 overall pick, the Charlotte Hornets are going to select Stephon Castle. I'm going to go with Stephon Castle here. And you might be thinking, you have him, you have LaMelo Ball already. What's the deal with having 2 guards already on this team? If you look at LaMelo Ball's career, he works best when he has either ball handler with him or like a secondary guard. Stephon Castle could definitely bring that for him. His 3-point shot is a bit kind of iffy, but he is someone who's athletic, who can attack the rim, who's pretty athletic, and I think that him and like LaMelo together would be great in terms of just running the court together. LaMelo can bring on the 3-point shooting in terms of the backcourt. We know that he could be a great 3-point shooter in his prime when he's on the court. And Stephon Castle is a solid playmaking guy towards that. I know he's kind of a combo guard. He's not like a true playmaker, but that's what LaMelo Ball's there for. We've seen him close to lead the league in assists too. So if Stephon Castle can really like lock in as kind of be, a secondary ball handler, be that 2 guard next to LaMelo, I think that backcourt can really work wonders here. So I have Charlotte really taking Stephon Castle here.
I think Stephon fit. Some of the intel says that he's one of those guys that wants to be able to like slide into a starting point guard role. He didn't really want to go anywhere that has a franchise guy already at the guard position. Now, at the end of the day, you're just going to be happy to get drafted, Stephon. Yes. So let's really calm down for a moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that what matters the most if a Charlotte Hornets team is going to take Stephon Castle is the defensive upside. At the end of the day, Charlotte needs to establish a defensive identity. If Donovan Clingan could have fell to them, I don't care what your center rotation looks like. I love Mark Williams. I don't care what your center rotation looks like. Donovan Clingan becomes instantly a culture setter defensively at the center position for a team like Charlotte. Now, I think that Stephon can do a similar, maybe not the same thing, but something similar at the guard position as a tenacious defender on the wing.
Basically, what I see from like Stephon is kind of like what I see Alex Sarr doing for the Wizards, and just being a culture setter there at the defensive end there. And I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't think that Clingan was going to be drafted to the Rockets for you, so I had Clingan going to the Hornets. But Stephon Castle is my backup, and I think that although his shooting is a little bit off, I think he's still a decent playmaker to work beside LaMelo Ball, and he's like athletic enough to like work off ball where he could be kind of, I'm not going to say like Miles Bridges and just continue to be like the guy attacking the rim, but he is pretty athletic and is able to like finish through traffic.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to really like about Stephon, obviously, as an on-ball creator. I think he's still not really like a true point guard yet either. I think that's where LaMelo Ball can really kind of fill in. And you have to look at the overall like wing play, especially if they end up bringing Miles Bridges back. Like, they're going to be pretty athletic across the board. I mean, you look at LaMelo, Stephon, you still have Brandon Miller, who had a pretty solid year last year. Then you bring back Miles Bridges, hopefully a little rejuvenated, depending on the circumstances. I don't want to throw this out here too aggressively, but apparently Lonzo Ball is on the chopping block with my Bulls. Who knows? I mean, obviously, if they're not able to pursue Miles Bridges, it actually would be kind of interesting if like Charlotte hooked up Lonzo and LaMelo on that team, because Lonzo does fill out a lot of the weaknesses that LaMelo has, and LaMelo has a lot of on-ball offensive chops that Lonzo hasn't shown in the league. So there's a weird little mesh there. There's a really interesting Charlotte Hornets team brewing if they make a couple of different moves on like the edges. Stephon Castle is a really interesting pick if Lonzo Ball is not on their board. If he is on the board, I still think Stephon could be interesting as a backup point guard, but I think either way, he just fits in Charlotte because he brings something they desperately need.
100%, and that's why I kind of like have him there as like a big. I mean, he's a big point guard. He's like 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that will definitely like help out, and especially like already with his frame and his ability to defend on ball. It's just something that the Hornets desperately need, especially on the perimeter. So I have Stephon Castle going there. Number 7, we have the Portland Trailblazers on the board. Who you have him selecting?
I was between two wings that I think both could fit pretty interesting with the timeline that Portland went with, but I'm gonna just kind of stick with consensus here, just because I think raw talent wise he could really, blossom if given the chance. I'm gonna go with Cody Williams here.
Cody Williams. I had a feeling you would go there.
I think that just like as a project, he is just a really interesting upside pick. You know what I mean? He's just a guy that I think when healthy, and that's a really big thing to throw out because last year he really struggled to stay on the floor. And when he was on the floor, he was still dealing with stuff. You know, he had like a broken nose situation where he had to deal with the mask for a long time. That kind of affected his game for a little while. He's had a good amount of bumps and bruises on his road to the NBA, right?
Yeah.
But I think that with the overall potential that he has, and let's be honest, there is a little bit of a blueprint here with Jalen Williams that if you can kind of actualize the best versions of Cody, you have a really good wing prospect on your hands. Again, remember, look at what Jalen Williams has been able to do in such a short time with the Oklahoma City Thunder developmental system. So this is a really good chance, again, for the Portland Trailblazers who need wing depth. Let's be honest. They got all the guards in the world. They need no more guards. They just need to get wing depth and front court help, right? So Cody Williams, with the upside that he has in the developmental system that hopefully will kind of let him, explore the studio space, there's a real big upside as a strong two-way wing. Again, everything you see with Jalen, I'm not saying it builds out the exact same way, but everything we see with Jalen and OKC should give you really good hope. You think about the work ethic of Cody, the idea that maybe by year 2, he could put on some weight, just like we saw Jalen Williams do. Then it creates this even more dangerous player on the wing defensively. There's like a real progression that we've been able to see in Oklahoma City with the guard rotation they have, with the development they've been able to put with a guy like Jalen Williams, both on ball, off ball, defensively. They're all the aspects that give you the blueprint that says like, dang, bro, if we really give Cody the chance and not like force feed him the ball. They didn't force feed Jalen the ball in OKC either. But if you just really give him a chance, dang, he could be really special. He could be really crazy in this league. And I think that they need that kind of upside.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I do like that pick of getting Cody Williams in there. I think he also just brings a different change of pace to what the Blazers already have, because he doesn't have like the quickest first step. He's not the most explosive player in the world, but having Cody Williams there, someone who's able to get to the rim at his own pace, you already have your jumpy guys and like Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp and all of them. You already have like your jumpy explosive guys on the perimeter. Cody Williams can get you into the paint. He's pretty crafty in there, and plus he gives you that defensive on the perimeter that you desperately need. You have the two-way ability. He's getting better as a 3-point shooter. He's not like gonna be like, he's not elite by any means, but he's gonna be getting there. He has like a good two-way ability, and I think that he's like also a solid playmaker to kind of add to the mix as a wing guy. I think Cody Williams would be great there, and especially in the position of need, like the wing position there in Portland.
Yeah, I like Cody a lot. I feel really strongly about what he can be. I try not to use Jalen as such a barometer, but there's so much to take away from what he's been able to do in just a short time with Oklahoma City that if Portland plays their cards right with him, he could really blossom into something. We saw Tamoni Kamara, who was just a throw-in, as part of a trade and the part of the trade with Damian Lillard last year. He really blossomed defensively last year.
Yeah.
So it
Sure.
goes to show you that if you really kind of let these guys just hash it out and really find themselves on the floor, like you can find some really special stuff. Portland got to see a little bit of that with Tamani, and then obviously, as the season went along, Scoot Henderson also got a little bit better as things went as things progressed as well. Like they have something to work with.
100%. And I think Cody Williams is a good pick. Again, someone with a 7-1 wingspan as well. That's going to be definitely useful out there in the perimeter for the Trailblazers. All right. Going out with the 8th overall pick. And I'm back with the Spurs. I'm back here with the Spurs with the 8th overall pick. Reed Shepard was there at number 4 for me. And now for number 8, let's just double down on the shooting. Let's get one of the best shooters in the draft. And at the 8th overall pick, the Spurs select Dalton Knecht. I think that, again, he's a bit of an older rookie for sure, but I think that having that knockdown shooting ability, probably not starting for the San Antonio Spurs, but coming off the bench and just being able to move off ball and just kind of score from like all 3 levels, I think Dalton Knecht could just give them that extra burst that they need. Like you mentioned, bottom 4 shooting in the league. They need all the shooting help they can get. Reed Shepard's adding into the backcourt mix. You have someone who could kind of be a 2-3 sort of guy there in Dalton Knecht. I think he could fit well next to like Devin Vassell, and if potentially if they move off of Keldon Johnson eventually, I think there's even more spot for Dalton. But man, he's gonna be a great 3-point shooter, and if he catches fire, we could see we've seen him in clutch situations there in college as well. So I think Dalton Knecht would be a great pick here. Double down to shooting. That's where you need the most help with. Let's give him some more with Dalton.
I think it's interesting that he decided to go the shooting route. Obviously, this would have been interesting to be able to like reunite the teammates because obviously Rob Dillingham is still on the board here for us as well.
Yeah.
That would have been kind of an interesting play. Nonetheless, I think Dalton just gives you like grown man ability in the league when you think about translatability and like what he's able to bring to the table day one. And although you love what Wembanyama is able to do, and you love what it is that he creates for his teammates in terms of opportunity, this team can't just be all developmental either, right?
Yeah.
This has to be this is a guy where the timeline, they are not playing around, right?
Yeah.
You can't microwave this. We saw that go bad with Anthony Davis with the New Orleans Pelicans when you try to speed up the timeline faster than what's really warranted. But we also understand how generational of a talent this really is. Don't get me wrong. Anthony Davis was special. This is different, though. This is definitely in different territory. So Dalton, although you have an upside pick in Reed is also a play now player as well, obviously.
For sure. Yeah.
But then Dalton is definitely like a plug and play type in terms of like you're going to see instant production out the gate. And whether he's off the bench or starting, like you mentioned, the Keldon Johnson aspect of that will tell you a lot. But even if he's just a depth piece at the wing, that's still good for a Spurs team that's still trying to like figure out who even really matters on this team outside of Victor.
Yeah, I mean, like, and with the picks already made with Reed Shepard coming onto the team, you have 2 guys that you want to have the ball in your hands already. You have Shohan's going to be handling the ball. You have Reed Shepard, and of course you're going to have to want the ball in Victor Wembanyama's hands. You need guys here that are not who don't need the ball to be an absolute threat, and Dalton could just run around the perimeter, finding himself open. And there's going to be double teams ready for Wemby. This guy's going to find himself open, and he's going to be a knockdown shooter, which I think, again, the Spurs desperately need. He'll be like a perfect plug-and-play guy for them over there.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. 9th overall pick. There's been a lot of discussion if the Grizzlies are going to trade this or not.
Yeah.
But if they were to make the 9th overall pick, Jay, throwing it over to you, who are the Grizzlies drafting?
So you mentioned beforehand the idea of them trading. All the convo has been about them trading up, never trading down. It's been to go target Donovan Clingan, obviously atop the top 3. Obviously, Donovan Clingan's not on the board anymore. Another guy who I actually had mocked to them was Dalton Knecht. You just took him, so that makes them have to interestingly make a different choice on the fly. I'm taking Ron Holland here. Like I think they need a wing. Cody Williams is off the board. Dalton Knecht is off the board. 2 of the better guys in this draft class at that spot. Ron Holland, I think I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna make this declaration on the pod. I think he's gonna mess around and be a steal of this draft. I really think he has that kind of upside for
He's
real.
jumpy. He's jumpy.
He's got the athleticism. He's got the over. I think he has the defensive tenacity to really be like an interesting guy on the wing. Memphis needs wing help, not just from a three-point shooting perspective, but from a depth perspective. They took a swing on Zaire Williams with the same process a few seasons ago, and it hasn't played out the way they hoped it would.
Yeah.
To the point, traded Dylan Brooks away. They got Marcus Smart thinking that he could be like a small guard that plays like that wing position for them defensively. Yeah. Now, we didn't get to see a lot of that last year due to the injury concerns, but you have Marcus Smart, you have Ja Morant, you still have Derrick Rose. Like, I like Devin Carter, for example. He's a guy out of Providence I really like, who would be interesting for this team. But it's like you have so many guards as it is, and Marcus Smart is already that like defensive guard menace type that like Devin Carter is like projected as. Yeah. So I don't know why you go after Devin, for example. I like him, but do you pick him at 9 when you really need help in the front court? I think Ron Holland is the next best player on the board here. I think if you're going to make the pick at 9 as Memphis, you have to do BPA. That's the only way to go, in my opinion. And so that leads me to genuinely believe that I think he could be a really interesting player on this team. And the hope is that they really give him a chance early and often, because I think they need to shore up the wing spot if they're going to get better. We've put OG Anunoby there. We put Kevin Durant as a trade option at one point. We did that on the podcast. Like, we've tried to get this team, free man for years, it feels like, even with Dylan Brooks on the team. Yeah. But like, I'm not saying Ron Holland is going to be that guy, but I think he has the upside to be really special.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great pick for the Grizzlies as well. You have to take another swing at it, because Zaire Williams has not been like that like reliable three guy that you've been hoping that he was going to turn into. What Ron Holland does is give you one of the best defensive wings in this draft, and someone who will just put pressure on the rim. That can open up the game for potentially, Jaren Jackson out there on the perimeter, Desmond Bane for 3. Obviously, he kind of like, when he goes downhill, he kind of has a tunnel vision, so he does have to work a bit on his playmaking. But the defensive ability is there, and I think that someone who is able just to even put pressure on the rim and then like kind of learn at the NBA level like what it means to have the what it means to like play make and make that extra pass. I think it's gonna be good for him. I think the Grizzlies is just a great place for a talent like him to develop. So I like having Ron Holland there.
Yeah, big fan of him. He's gonna be one of my guys in this draft, so to speak. I think there's a lot of upside. Memphis would be getting like one of the steals, I think, if he falls to 9.
Yeah, 100%. All right, going into number 10 with the Utah Jazz. This is gonna be interesting because I had a couple of people like kind of like put into this draft. Some guys felt I didn't think we're gonna be falling at this point, but I think I'm still gonna go with this guy, someone who is a good combo guard, and I think he can just like really just put his impact on the game right away. At the 10th overall pick, give me Devin Carter for the Utah Jazz. Give me Devin Carter.
I like him.
I like him as a player. I like someone who's a good defender who can hustle well. So who's someone who can just like attack the paint and actually have a little bit of creativity there. He can play the 1 or 2. I know he's kind of small, but someone to play again like next to Keontae George, someone who can really defend on the perimeter, especially because Keontae's not that's not really his strong suit, and can still let him go on the floor. I think he would be a really good pick for them. Obviously, you don't know what's gonna happen with Colin Sexton after this. Maybe you might have to make a move there. But if you really are believing in Keontae George, I think you need someone there to kind of make up for his defensive liabilities. And I think that Devin Carter could do that. So I think I can have him here with the 10th overall pick.
Yeah, I think Devin in general, just like his ability to guard, is going to translate well. And I mean, they need the defense on the perimeter. I mean, who is supposed to guard for this team when you look at the guard rotation they have, right? Obviously, they still have Colin Sexton on this team as well. They have Jordan Clarkson for now. Obviously, that's one of those things. Keontae George, not necessarily an upside guard from a defensive perspective either. Like, They need this kind of guy on the wing, on the perimeter, to just be able to give you like a real threat as the off guard defensively. And I think he's gonna be a dangerous defender like day one. I really think. Like if you watch the tape at Providence, like this dude pressures the ball in a way that like is going to make ball handlers like very scared. Like I think there's real like Avery Bradley level potential here, like defensively. I think he's going to be dangerous.
I think he's going to be a really good player. And over there and like trying to develop that chemistry in the backcourt with him and Keontae George, especially having that a good season that Keontae had, could be a really good starting spot for the Utah Jazz over there. So I would have Devin Carter going over there. Jay, funnily enough, your Chicago Bulls get the 11th overall pick and they fall right to you. So Jay, with the 11th overall pick, the Chicago Bulls select.
Good God, man. I'm not going to lie to you. This is where I wish Ron Holland fell.
Yeah.
Oh, man. He's injured right now, but I still just like him too much. And after getting Josh Giddey, I also think this is just going to flesh itself out. I think the Bulls are going to take Nikola Topic at 11.
I like that. I like that.
He's one of those guys where I think we're just gonna try to get bigger at the guard position. I love Kobe White as an offensive creator, but I think that trading for Josh Giddey is a signal to me that we're going to slowly but surely start trying to take an approach of playing bigger at the guard position, playing bigger at the wing in general. I think that Nikola Topic is a good decision maker. Not insane offensively in terms of a shot creator. That's another thing we said about Josh Giddey. So I'm a little bit fearful about that one to a lesser degree. But I think that he's a guy who I just think the size is there, the ability to drive is there. He's a good finisher, not an elite finisher, but a strong finisher.
He's kind of awkward in the paint. I'm not gonna lie, his finishing is a little bit awkward, but he does love that turnaround jumper.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting is obviously gonna be another calling card. We said it all podcast long. That's gonna be a really big thing for him. But like, he's gonna be a good connector. He's gonna be a good connector both on ball and off ball in terms of being able to create opportunity. He's not really. He's kind of a Chicago Bulls kind of pick in the sense of like he's not going to be flashy, but he's going to do what he's supposed to do.
Like Tomas Satoransky, like
in a hilarious way, yes. Like I think in a hilarious way, yes. I think even if you look back, and I don't think he's going to be this good because defensively it's not even close, but that's a lot of what Lonzo Ball brought to the team that made us so good 2 years ago was. He's not going to – yes, there are flashy passes and stuff like that. He's an elite passer. I don't think Nikola Topic is an elite passer at the level that Lonzo Ball is, for example.
He's very good, though. He's very good, yeah.
But he's very good. And I think it's about just making positive decision-making. Outside of Lonzo Ball's defensive tenacity, the thing that made us so good a few years ago was the fact that Lonzo helped the Bulls make quick decisions. And that really opened a lot up for a Zach LaVine, for a DeMar DeRozan. I think that when you get guys like a Josh Giddey, like a Kobe White, like a Ayo Dosunmu, right? You need to be able to play with real pace, play up tempo, and make better decisions and make them quickly. Nikola Topic as another connector can help with doing that. It's not a perfect fit, and the 3-ball is still going to be kind of a struggle. But I think that he is an interesting fit when you think about this team trying to get bigger on the wings.
Yeah, 100%. I like his ability to kind of change of pace. Like he kind of plays at his own speed and he's able to get to the spots he wants. Again, it sucks that he's injured again, like with like the whole he's probably gonna be out for the year. But it just gives us time to kind of like rehabilitate, get accumulate with the team, and I think that he can still be a very good piece for you guys. I think that like. You're one of the few teams that can kind of like risk the fact that he'll be out for a year. Some other teams maybe don't want to get out of the first round pick. But to be honest, if you're getting like a potential like top 8, top 7 talent, like at this point in the lottery, I think you'll take it. So yeah, I think Nikola Topic is a good pick get for you guys.
Stealth tank.
It's the stealth tank happening 100%. I like that. But yeah, I got the next pick over here, the number 12 overall pick going to the OKC Thunder. But Jay, I mentioned to you this before the pod. I said I had a trade to announce. And the trade is happening here at the 12th overall pick. And
Oh,
I
really?
say that my Toronto Raptors jump in to the number 12 pick and make a deal with the OKC Thunder in a trade where the Thunder get Jakob Poeltl in the 19th overall pick in exchange for number 12, a 2025 second from either Boston or Memphis, a 2026 second round pick from either Dallas or Philly, and a the Denver Nuggets pick in 2027, top 10 protected.
Okay.
So it's a team friendly contract for Jakob Poeltl, who's going to be making like $60 million over the next 3 years for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then with the new TV deal coming, that contract's going to be like freaking peanuts at that point. But I think they need someone with the center position. They want someone a bit more established. So Jakob Poeltl's that guy. They still get to have a pick in this draft, and the Raptors move up. Now, who are they going to go with this selection? You may think, oh, maybe it's time to get another center in there. I say we go with Masai's wet dream and go with another wing. And with the 12th overall pick, the Raptors select Tijane Saloon from France. Again, we need someone with some. We talked about it at the trade deadline. The Raptors had so much freaking length before the trade deadline, and we traded that all the way to the point where we have like almost nothing left besides Scotty Barnes. So what this pick does is get another project in there, someone who has good raw qualities to become a really good two-way player. But what I like about him is his feel for the game, his ability to understand spacing. Sure, he doesn't have an elite jump shot. Sure, he maybe hasn't have like the frame to be a great defender or anything, but he just has good basketball IQ, knows how to play multiple positions, and just understands positioning on the court. You start putting him into an NBA body, and those other things will come. As basketball IQ and stuff, it's hard to find that in a prospect, especially in a young guy like Saloon. He just knows the basics of basketball, and I think in a team like the Raptors, who at this point want to run fast, get on a break, Salon could be a really good fit here, and I think I'm going to have him at the 12th overall pick.
I like him. I think that the overall upside is the most important thing. The 3-point shot for him obviously is going to unlock minutes for him in a way that I think that like the Raptors desperately need it. I mean, you look across the board in terms of who they got on the floor. Emmanuel Quickly still your best shooter, mind you. You boys got to re-sign him. Make sure he's a priority.
He won't be.
Make sure he's a priority. But you boys still have to re-sign him. But he's still an interesting player for them. But still, you guys' best floor spacer. RJ Barrett's still here. Obviously, we saw the news that Scotty Barnes got his extension. We know he's obviously a key cog in the system for what they're trying to rebuild. And then things get really hazy from there. And obviously, that's going to be one of the important things, especially because there's a real good likelihood that Gary Trent Jr. is out the building, and he's probably the next best 3-point shooter I can think of for your roster.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a swing on the fact that 3-point shooting percentage that he kind of is like shown off the capability of is real enough to like really get him real minutes. Because him and Grady Dick, this is basically what you guys are investing it in, is the idea of getting a wing type that can stretch the floor. This is you guys' Otto Porter rebirth, so to speak. Yes. Right? So that's the question, is can he kind of make that skill translate at a high level?
Look, this might be bold, but I feel like he's kind of like Richier in terms of his kind of build and kind of like what potential abilities he has in the future. Like obviously a much more raw version of him. But man, seeing both of these guys highlight reels, I feel like this guy's a bit more smooth, and I think he has a bit more. I'm not gonna say he's gonna be better, but I think he has a lot more smoother of a game to add to him at this position. So I think that he could possibly be something here. And we know the Raptors developmental system, what they could turn guys into late draft picks into. So hopefully he's another one of those success projects.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the number 13th overall pick, Jay. The Sacramento Kings are on the clock. They select.
Oh, man. So if you look across all the boards, like a lot of the guys where Sacramento would normally like already have these dudes, we've already taken them. So the guy that I'm going to roll with here, and it might be a little bit higher than most people, depends on the circumstances, but I'm taking Tristan da Silva here.
Okay.
Tristan da Silva out of Colorado is literally just like another plug and play wing. You know what I mean? Another Keegan Murray-esque kind of guy. But I think maybe the upside is not as insane in terms of what he might be able to do from an on-ball creation standpoint. We saw that like they really are slowly but surely trying to give Keegan the ball a little bit more and see what he can do as a wing player. Tristan, he's just going to space the floor. he's really just gonna be a knockdown shooter, man. If he can guard, he's gonna be dangerous. Like if he's gonna be able to guard, that's gonna really give them another. Yeah, that's gonna give them another aspect. But I think the truth is that they're gonna really want to lean into 3-and-D wings after what. I hate to say this, man, but like, because I loved him coming out of that draft class, but like the Davion Mitchell thing flopped, bro. Like the off night thing was cool for like a summer league run. But outside of that, like Davion Mitchell has not been as dangerous as a defender as what we hoped he would be in this league. And a lot of people kind of understood that the size and frame was going to be something that probably did hold him back. And the question was just like, how real was that? Like, how bad was it really going to be for him? And it hasn't been great. So I think they're going to lean more into the wing defender. I think Keon Ellis gave them a really strong understanding of like how good this team can be if they can guard. They have offensive generators in DeMontis and De'Aaron and Malik Monk. So you get another knockdown shooter in Tristan Da Silva. You have Keegan Murray. You have Keon Ellis, right? And you keep going down this list of just having big guys who can guard and shoot the ball at a high clip. I think Tristan Da Silva, he is ironically, and this might end up knocking him out of the pecking order once again, what Indiana did when they went to go get Chris Duarte.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
An older rookie, he definitely has a good feel for the game. His defense is a question mark, especially with his lack of athleticism, but he just knows how to get his shot off. He has he could score in multiple levels, which is good. I just think that he could play different positions and he could just be a good spacer at the ball. So I think that would be a good fit over there for the Kings for sure. So I like that over there. All right, I get the final pick over here in the lottery, 14th overall pick with the Trailblazers. Obviously, they had a pick earlier as well, and you had them taking Cody Williams. So with this next pick over here, I'm going to have them taking, again, could be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to have them taking Jacoby Walter with the 14th overall pick. I think that someone with a good 3-and-D acumen. I mean, with the guard position already at in Portland, filled up with guys that want to handle the ball. You want someone who can be effective off the ball, but also someone that could shoot the three. And I think that you can potentially see that in Jacoby Walter. The only thing is you want to know if that three. I mean, he has a nice looking stroke, but is it going to develop? Is it going to translate to the NBA? This is the question we've had for a lot of guys in this draft, for sure.
Right.
But I think Jacoby Walter definitely has that. Potential. He has the defensive acumen already. If he can add that 3-point shot, he could be maybe not a star player in this league, but just a guy who can be on the court there for the Trailblazers and be there for years to come. Just someone who doesn't who's not going to really interrupt Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, but someone who could still have an impact on the game. So I'm going to go with Jacoby Walter.
I like Jacoby, man. I think he's just one of those guys that's just going to be able to translate really well. He's going to play. I think he's going to play day one. He's going to play hard, and he's going to make that wing room tough. You look at the guys that are going to be in that wing room when you throw in Cody Williams. Obviously, I mentioned that they have Tumani Kamara. They still have Matisse Thybulle, I believe, as well.
Yes, they do.
This wing rotation they are going to have to be built tough because to get minutes, you're going to have to be at a guard. You're going to have to be a guard. And Jacoby is going to be a big contribution to the proof of that being a necessary skill to get on the floor for Portland. At least if Chauncey Billups genuinely wants to see this team take real strides this season, which it sounds like Portland is trying to.
They're really trying to at least take. Yeah, and that's what you need in these guys because you kind of have your pieces set up for who you want your main guys to be going forward. That's why you got Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton. It's all about the other guys who are going to be able to fill the gaps with this team. And I think that people like Cody Williams, people like Jacoby Walter can bring that to this team and still have a big impact. So I'm going to have him going to the 14th pick. But yeah, Jay, the lottery's done. That is our mock draft. Let us know what you think.
Wait, I think we got 14, right?
That was 14, the Blazers.
Oh, yeah, dang, that's right. I forgot that's Golden State's pick, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, we got the Blazers taking him with the 14th pick. Let us know what you think down below. But before we move off the NBA draft, me and Jay have 3 of our top 3 sleepers this draft that we didn't take in these lottery picks. We're gonna give you just short, quick advertisements of them. We're just gonna kind of promote them to you guys and talk about why we think you should keep an eye on them. Jay, I'm gonna throw it over to you for your first guy. Who do you have as one of the top 3 sleepers in this draft?
Well, this is a guy that me and you didn't discuss before the pod and when we were breaking up our guys, but it just came down to how the board fell. Rob Dillingham wasn't taken in the lottery, and that's a guy who on some people's boards is labeled as like the top point guard in this
Yeah.
class. You know what I mean? And he kept slipping, and now here we are at 15. Miami, everybody keeps putting Jared McCain there. But if we're going talent for talent, if Rob Dillingham falls all the way to 15, I think Miami runs to the podium with the swiftness and gets that job done. Because you get another offensive creator, you get another dude who can just, I mean, really, really put the ball in the basket. 3-point land, shot creation is super, super versatile. Like
Yeah.
just a really high energy player. He gives off I think the best comparisons that I've heard. Obviously, there's there's Jamal Crawford, there's Luke
Emmanuel
Williams,
Quickly.
Emmanuel
Emmanuel
Quickly is
Quickly.
interesting. TV. Here's an upside one that I thought was really dope. Brandon Jennings, Milwaukee Brandon Jennings. I thought that was
That's
pretty
solid.
interesting. If he can be that, remember prior to Brandon Jennings going down with injury, he was one of the better guards in the league with Milwaukee. Like he
Yeah.
was dangerous. He was a guy that was a real threat as an offensive creator, high volume guy, obviously, which I also think Rob Dillingham is as well. But he's a dude who could put the ball in the basket when you call his name to be able to score the basketball. He is going to give you buckets. This is a dude who I think with Miami who has the kind of build-up system that Rob Dillingham is not the best defensively. Miami's gonna make him guard because it's the only way
Yeah.
he's gonna get on the floor, right? With Miami. The other thing is we know their developmental system is good. Haywood Highsmith has come through that system as a 3-and-D wing. We just saw Jaime Jaquez last year, right? Who
Yeah.
really burst onto the scene after being a guy who like we thought was like pretty well made coming into the
Mhm.
league as a play now kind of dude, but he really showed out as an on-ball creator last year. Tyler Hero, we've seen really good spurts from him, despite the fact that he might not be in good graces with the Heat right now. I also think that the Robert Dillingham acquisition, if they take him at 15, that can make Tyler Hero expendable, and that's an important thing when you think about the Miami Heat wanting to get better. So I think Rob Dillingham, if he falls out of the lottery, which I don't think he actually is, that's just how our board fell. But if he
Yeah.
falls out the lottery, the Miami Heat are up at the podium, I don't think they bat an eye. I think they make the move and they do what they got to do. But Rob Dillingham, wherever he goes, he's going to fill up the stat sheet from a scoring perspective. He's going to be electric from day one, I think.
I think that's a pretty good one there. I don't know if he fits in with like the Miami Heat sort of like build of player, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if he goes there, he's gonna have to do it if he wants to adapt. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that could be definitely interesting here. But I mean, there's a lot of guys you could talk about here. Obviously, like Jared McCain is someone to talk about. Zach Edey is someone to talk about. But I'm gonna go with guys that maybe you don't even like have on that a lot of guys are not keeping their eye on. First guy, and I think this guy would be a really good fit in Miami. Tyler Kolek.
Yeah.
The Miami Heat love their older rookies, people who are just mature enough to be a part of the system. Tyler Kolek can shoot the ball. He is a great playmaker. He does it. He's very unselfish, and I think that he's like a smart enough defender where, kind of like I'm not gonna say Steph, but he just knows how to be at the right place at the right time. He's not gonna beat him like off the jump. He's gonna stick it with you. Maybe might not be the strongest. Maybe you'll be able to score over him, but he'll be in the right spots. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's just like a perfect Miami type guy, giving me Goran Dragic type vibes, like from like his early career. I think that Tyler Kolek, as someone who's starting to rise up draft boards right now, I think would be a great fit in Miami.
Yeah, Tyler is one of those guys. We talked about it off pod. Miami, New York, Phoenix. If he lands and Milwaukee,
Yeah,
if he lands in any of those spots, he's going to be good.
yeah,
He's going to be good because they're going to be able to lean on him as a backup guard who just makes good decisions. I think what did you compare him to, like a TJ McConnell type?
I mean,
Um,
like trying to like at least like I think no, that's a different guy I was trying to compare TJ to, but this guy just is like a smarter defender. He won't be like off the ball, but he'll stay in front of you. He'll stay in front of
Yeah,
you.
he's much better defender than TJ. Obviously, I think like out the gate,
Yeah,
good decision maker. He's going to be tenacious defensively. He's going to be able to fit into a culture too. Like he's going to be a
yeah,
guy that's going to be able to like buy in. And I think he's going to make the most out of minutes. I think if he's definitely one of those guys that needs to land on a win now team though, for sure.
yes,
Yes.
million percent.
Yes.
Okay, Jay, who's another guy that you want to talk shortly on?
Carlton Carrington. He's another guy that's been like shooting up boards lately. He's a dude that like people have like the floor is like anywhere between like 20 and 22, but like the ceiling for him is like in the lottery. Like this is a dude who could be like really special. On ball creation is interesting. Gives off kind of like Karis LeVert vibes, but I think that there's a part of his on ball positioning that we just still didn't really get to see in college that depending on what team he lands on could be a really interesting fit in some places as like a backup off guard, maybe even like a maybe even like a starting two guard for a lot of teams. He's a dude who just has like shown real chops defensively, can create for himself. There's a lot to like. I think that like I said before, I think Karis LeVert is a very interesting like comp for him.
Yeah.
And we've seen how Karis LeVert in Cleveland has gotten better as a defender, and it's really opened up his game. I think if he can kind of put together like what Karis was as an offensive player in Brooklyn, with what he's been able to become defensively in Cleveland, like Carlton Carrington can be like a really special player at the off guard spot for a team.
100%. And I think that would be even a more interesting pick if he goes to a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, who might move up Darius Garland. That can create room for him as well. So I think that could be like something interesting to look at. I like that. By the way, other people might, if people don't know what you're talking about, it's Bob Carrington. If you look at other draft boards. Yeah. But I mean, like, yeah, I think it would be a great fit for a team like the Cavaliers, who back at point guard, I think he could be a good piece for them. Next guy I want to talk about, and this is a guy who I potentially want my Toronto Raptors to pick. Kel'el Ware. How I like to describe this guy is a potential Jared Allen type player with a jump shot. He's improved his jump shot from the 3-point line. I think that's a 7-1 guy who's athletic, who can defend the paint, is a great raw presence. I think he would be a great fit on a team needing, like I said, like the Toronto Raptors. Like I said, they made a trade to get a wing player, but if he falls, if the Raptors don't even give him the 19th pick and he falls to that position, I wouldn't mind someone getting someone like him. The only thing that people have a worry about him is his motor. Like he kind of has that laid back sort of attitude, kind of like a Hassan Whiteside, kind of like a Tracy McGrady, where it doesn't feel like he's trying when he plays on the court, even though he's super talented. Maybe that's something that can be unlocked in other places, but if he can get that motor like up to question, like, I mean, he has all the tools to be a good center in this league. So I think he would be someone to be looking out for.
Yeah, Kel'el was somebody that was in conversations for the NBA draft last year, obviously, and he was a dude that was kind of highly discussed at the beginning of that draft cycle. Obviously, ended up not kind of going the way he would have hoped and ended up going back to school. But he's a dude who I think like the upside of him is like you said, the upside of him is like a special rim running center who might be able to actually stretch the floor for you. I think the low end of him is like a Clint Capella type at the worst, which Clint Capella at the peak of his powers was still like a pretty good center on both sides of the floor.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot more of a rim runner back then, but I think that's how Kel'el Ware is going to start out as. He's going to start out as a guy who's going to have to do dirty work in the paint in order to get minutes. If he can't, he's got to become a better rebounder. That's going to be really important for him too. But he's going to have to rebound, and he's going to have to do the dirty work around the basket. That the 3-point shooting aspect, the stepping away from the basket, that stuff is going to have to come with development. But I think he's going to have to carve himself out in this league as a rim running center first, a Daniel Gafford type maybe in the beginning.
Derek Lively should be this man's like blueprint. Derek Lively should be his exact blueprint.
Especially when you think about the idea that the thing that made Derek Lively different from a lot of the other centers that Dallas has dealt with in general, not just Daniel Gafford, but again, we've joked about their center rotation for the longest, is decision making as a passer with the ball in the low post. That's something that Kel'el Ware can develop better as a decision maker with the ball when getting the basketball in the low post. That's also going to really open up his game a lot as another guy who can kind of like create space in other ways besides having to take off balance jump shots and stuff like that.
100%. I mean, he definitely has the tools to be good at all the stuff that you said over there. He just has to kind of have that extra motivation, that extra motor in order to be able to be good at those things. So hopefully he's able to do that. Yeah. Jay, who's your final guy that you have as one of your sleepers of the draft?
So the other guy, I like Devin Carter, and I was gonna bring him up, but the guy that I'm gonna bring up is another older dude, Kevin McCullough. He's been through this draft cycle what feels like 800 times. I've seen him play in the NCAA tournament as part of Texas Tech more than my fair share of times, and I've liked him for
Yeah.
years. Him, Terrence Shannon, like these are all dudes that like at the wing position as older dudes. I like them. I like what they bring to the table, and I think they're interesting players. Devin Carter, Terrence Shannon, and Kevin McCullough. They're all three guys that I think they're gonna come in and they're gonna guard. If they don't do anything else, they're gonna guard and they're gonna guard at a high level. The thing we learned about last year's rookie class is if you have a skill that translates directly to postseason caliber basketball, right? Which means shooting the basketball at a high level, guarding at a high level, spacing the floor, creating space. If you excel at a high level at any of those skills, rim running, rim defending, on ball pressure, point of attack defense, these are all things that are really important to playoff caliber basketball. It gets a rookie on the floor. How did Brandon Pajemski beat out Klay Thompson for a starting spot on the Golden State Warriors? He was able to shot generate for himself in a way that Klay Thompson was struggling to do. His defense against ones and twos was much higher, highly regarded compared to what we thought when he came into the league. How did Jaime Jaquez get to burst onto the scene? Yes, of course, the Miami Heat were dealing with injuries, but he showed a level of on-ball creation that we didn't expect from him coming out of UCLA, despite the fact that we knew he was a good player with the ball in his hands, but we didn't know he was that great with the ball in his hands, right? Asar and Amen Thompson were all NBA caliber defenders for like half the season last year. Like these are skills that all translate, which makes me think that guys like Devin Carter and Kevin McCullough, more specifically, Terrence Shannon, I think in a weird way is still a project to a lesser degree, even with him, being an older player. But Devin Carter and Kevin McCullough are two guys that I think their defensive acumen, again, Milwaukee, New York, Miami,
The Clippers,
Phoenix, LA to a lesser degree, Devin Carter to LA at 17 could be really interesting. Like, these are the kind of guys that, like, they're just going to play. They're just going to play, and they're going to play early.
100%. I do like that pick as well. Again, he's going to if he's going to stay in this league, I mean, he's predicted to be like a second-round pick. But if he's going to stay in this league for his great defensive acumen, and if he can develop that three-point shot, I mean, he wasn't that great three-point shooter, but he kind of improved in his senior year. But if he's able to really, like, improve the three-point shot, especially with the, like, especially combined with his feel for the game, his IQ, he could still be in the league for a long time, even though he's an older rookie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think when you look at this class, defense and 3-point shooting are going to be the ticket to guys getting on the floor. There's no elite rim runners. There's no Rob Dillingham might be the best on-ball shot creator of the entire draft class. There's a lot of interesting wing guys here. Isaiah Collier is a guy that we didn't call the name for, but I think he's gonna be really interesting. Like if he can go to the Miami Heat, like that would be crazy. He seems like a Miami Heat kind of player at the guard spot too. Like 3-point shooting and defense are gonna be the way that guys in this class get on the floor early, like a Brandon Pajemski did.
100%. I do like that shout out. For my final guy here, I'm gonna go with another older guard. I mean, I just love that these older type players who don't get that much shine in the top 15 because they're like kind of like a bit older rookies. They're like kind of, we know who they are, but I think they could still be really good players in this league. I'm looking at KJ Simpson, man. I like his I like the outlook for him. Someone with a quicker release, someone who's a point guard but doesn't need to be on the ball in order to be effective. Someone who's a solid like two-way defender. He just, maybe it's just me, but when I look at him, and this is probably my Raptor fan speaking of him, but he reminds me of Fred VanVleet, man. This reminds me of like a freaking younger Fred VanVleet. And if he's like in a system like the Minnesota Timberwolves with an aging point guard and Mike Conley, someone that can learn from him,
that's a good name.
I think that he could be a good player in this league. And and if you know Freddie, this man came into the Raptors as a freaking 21, 22-year-old rookie as well, and he still played a couple years in the G League. You could still get some all-star caliber players here, and I think that someone like KJ Simpson, who, again, he's turning 22 years old later on this year, but I think he's going to be someone to look at as someone who could be a potential, like a multi-time all-star, and he's just going to continue to slide down draft boards. I think like playoff contenders would love to look at someone like him.
I mean, you mentioned playoff contenders. That's another thing that's going to be so interesting is that Man, did the last like 2 years really, and we talked about this on the podcast before. The last 2 years have really taught us the importance of depth, bro. Like, really taught us the importance of depth, the importance of being able to space the floor, being able to guard multiple positions, versatility in general across the roster in terms of, can you be a ball handler when the main ball handler is off the floor? Can you be an off guard when you have a main facilitator already kind of leading the charge? If you're a 3-and-D wing, is the three part of the 3-and-D wing really hitting? Or are you guy that shoots the three at a high volume, but you just shoot 35%? Like, these are the different things that really define championship caliber basketball. And the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets these past 2 years have taught us how important wing depth, 3-point shooting, and versatility up and down your roster really is. This is one of those classes where, with there not being any like individual special pop out talents, it's going to come down to skill set. Skill set is going to be a new like high commodity when you look at draft classes like these. And the guys who excel the best at these individual specialist type skills are going to be the guys who we see a lot, and they get their names called a lot during the season and down the line.
100%, and I like the way you put it there. I mean, like, there's also that, and also it's important to get players in the draft that you can that can be effective for you on the cheap. So it's good to do your scouting even in these late portions, especially if you're these contending teams, because a lot of the guys that you probably want are gonna want some money. When you get these like rookie scale contracts and you get guys who are effective right away in the early stages of their career, that's going to be really helpful for you in terms of money management, especially with this whole second apron thing. So be on the lookout for these type of players here. Let us know down below what you guys think. Any other sleepers we mentioned, any other guys we didn't even mention in the lottery process that we missed out on. Let us know down below who we're missing, because we didn't even mention like Zach Edey. We didn't even mention Jeremy Kane, and these guys are potential lottery picks as well. So tell us who we missed out that we didn't even talk about, and maybe we can even do some tech talks about it as well. It's a long episode, man, but we had to do it with the NBA draft coming up. We haven't talked about these prospects all year, so we have to really kind of hunker down and like lock down to talk about these guys here in this episode. But we still have to do some of the podcast staples, which is the TV and J draft. And Jay, we're gonna conclude the NBA draft segment by doing something a little bit different, right? We're gonna do something a little bit different with this draft. And what we're gonna do is we still have to do drafts 2018 to 2013. But how we're going to do it is we're going to be taking one player from each draft. We've done something similar with countries, with the continents and all that. We're going to take one person from each draft and try to build the best team possible with guys from the last 6 years. Yeah. Jay, how do you feel about this draft?
So this gives us a lot more variety, but again, you only get one guy from each draft pick and for each draft that we're picking from. And you have to remember something that's going to be really important when we go through this draft is we're building a five-man roster with a one man off the bench. Yeah, so we're having a 6-man. We don't usually do that. Roster optimization is going to be really important. The cute way to do this is just to pick best guy available from every draft. The way to really optimize the team might involve maybe going off the rails a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how many of the top guys go off, or if there's a couple of guys that kind of sneak in here based off the fact that, like, hey, look, they just fit my team better.
100%. And you know how these drafts go. Jay gets the first pick. I get the next two, and we run things serpentine style. Jay, I throw it over to you. First pick in this draft. Which draft are you going to go to, and who's going to be your pick?
Dude, no pressure, because some of these draft classes are kind of nuts. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to keep it a bean with you. My first draft pick is going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out of the 2018 draft.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. I like that pick a lot. That is really good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, runner-up MVP this year. Coming off first on the board. That is a really, really good pickup over there. All right, but that's your 2018 pick gone. So I can take away from that for a little bit. I gotta look at these other drafts to maybe find some of the top guys over here. So, with my first pick of this draft, I'm actually going to go to last year, bro. Give me Wemby. Give me Wemby from that 2023 draft.
Yeah, I was debating just going ahead and pulling Wemby because, again, obviously he's just insane. But
he's insane. Yeah, I'm going to go with Wemby with that pick, and then I'm going to pair him up with my pick from the 2020 draft, and I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where the having back-to-back picks is just really special because man, that's a crazy first two to strike.
Yeah.
That's an insane first two to like kind of really kick things off for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, man, oh man. So where do I go next? Where do I go next? So let's go to last year. Um, let's go to 2023 and let's go ahead and get it out the way. I think from this 2023 class, I'm gonna take Derek Lively, and he's gonna be my 6 man guy. He's gonna be my 6 man guy for right
Okay.
now. It might change, but I'm gonna say for right now he's my 6 man guy.
Okay.
And then the other player I want to take is man, oh man, give me Paulo, man, give me Paulo.
Paolo. I like that. I like that pick. From the 2022 draft, you got the best player there. Can't hate it. Can't hate it. All right. 2 picks off the board. Now it's my turn to go with my choices. And I'm going to go, first off, with my third overall pick. I'm going to be selecting Scotty Barnes to be my 3-man on this
Of
team.
course, of course.
Gotta get my Raptor boy in there. Let me get
Yeah.
Scotty Barnes in 2021. Okay, so that's my 2021 pick done. And then I'm gonna try and go to 2019 here. I'm gonna figure out my pick over here, and I think I'm gonna end up going with my point guard here, and I'm
Okay.
gonna go with John Morant.
That's a good
Just like
one.
that.
That's a good
Just
one.
like that.
All right, so I'm gonna go
Actually,
to
no, I'll put him as my 6 man because I have my point for number one. I'm gonna have him as a 6 man.
okay. So for 2021, I'm gonna go with Alperen Şengün.
Okay, like that.
And how are we guarding Wimby? I have no clue, but guess what? Everyone asks that question every day of their life, so I'll be fine. I'll be okay in that department. Um, from the 2020 draft, holy cow, this is dangerous territory we're in here. Holy
Got some good
cow.
choices here.
Got some really good choices here, but the question is, you know what? Nope, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Tyrese Halliburton starting at the 1.
Like that. I had a feeling he was going to come off the board. Tyrese Halliburton is a damn good pick over there.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
that's
both
good.
have one pick left, I believe.
I have two.
Oh, you have 2? Okay.
Yeah. So I have someone for my 2022 and my 2018. So, do I want to go to 2018 first? It really depends on like how I want to go about this. I'm gonna go. It's gonna be funny to have this guy as my last pick. So I'm gonna go to 2022, and with my 2022 pick, I'm gonna just double down on the bigs. Let's just have the freaking like, let's just have freaking twin towers at the front court. Let's go with Chet Holmgren in my power forward position.
Yeah.
Go with Chet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Chet over there, and then with my point guard, my final pick in my draft, the 2018 draft, I'm gonna have Luka Doncic.
I was kind of waiting for that one to happen. I knew the minute I took Shea that was kind of like waiting on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of saw that one
20.
coming.
So I'm gonna have Chet and Luka. Yeah,
And
let's run with that.
with the last pick, we take Cam Jones. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Only Phoenix can surprise you that much. Only Phoenix can shock you that much. Wow. I never thought I would say that this would be my bench guy, but I honestly think that this is just how I'm gonna go because I'm gonna take my team as it is and I need the talent. But I only have 2019 left, and I'm bringing Zion off the bench on this team.
Damn. I thought it was Derek Lively for you off the bench, or is it Zion?
I'm switching it because I think that Alfred's gonna need help, bro. It's windy down there.
Sure. Got you. Fair play. Okay. I like that. John Williamson coming off your bench as the final pick there. And now our drafts are done. we're gonna do it. We're gonna discuss our two teams because this is gonna be probably one of the greatest drafts we do.
Mhm.
So, Jay, your 2018 to 2023 draft, who do you have as your lineup?
Okay, so from 2018 to 2023, the draft that I went with is out of the 2020 class, Tyrese Halliburton at the point guard position. Out of the 2018 class, I went with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at the 2. At the 2022 class, I went with Paulo Banchero at the 3 in this case. Out of the 2021 class, I went with Alperen Şengün. Out of the 2023 class, I went with Derek Lively. And then off the bench as a sixth man for the 2019 class, I went with Zion Williamson.
That's a damn good lineup. That backcourt is filthy, man. That's a good team. For myself, at the point guard position from the 2018 draft, we have Luka Doncic. From the 2020 class at my 2, we have Anthony Edwards. From the 2021 class at my 3, we have Scotty Barnes. From the 2022 class at the 4, we have Chad Holmgren. From the 2023 class at my center, we got Victor Wembanyama. And off my bench, I have John Morant.
Guys,
How do you feel about your team?
let's just shorten this and do the postmortem now. TV's team fries mine. Let's keep it a bean. Let's keep it a bean, bro. Like, I love my team from I have favorites out of each of these draft classes, and I think I kind of went with my heart in a lot of directions with these. Yeah. I've loved Shea Gilgeous-Alexander back with the LA Clippers days. TV's known this because we've been podcasting for years now, but I have been big on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's journey through the NBA to this point of becoming a superstar and the route he's went going through every stage of developing as a guard to the point that I just have an affinity for him at the guard position. He's a guy that I'm always going to just lean with as arguably my favorite player in the league. He's one of the first jerseys I ever bought. I lean with my heart in a lot of these draft classes. I still think fit-wise I'm okay. Not a ton of spacing, I will admit. But I think fit-wise, there's a lot of passing here. There is some three-point shooting from Tyrese and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. We got rim running and defense from Derek Lively. Zion Williamson off the bench. Gotta like him as a six-man scorer because the man's literally a walking 20 and 10. It feels like when he's healthy. So I like my team, but Luka and Victor is kind of crazy, and you have Anthony Edwards and John Morant. You might as well just put every 2K cover that's gonna be coming down the line on one team, because what the heck, bro? John Morant and Anthony Edwards are literally walking dunk machines, and Luka Doncic and Victor Wembanyama are basically the next generational talents of the NBA. So I mean, his team fries. I'm not gonna lie, his team is insane.
Anyway, look, I don't have elite shooting, but I just have superstar talent everywhere. Luka, Anthony Edwards, John Morant. I mean, Wemby, and then you got two just great all-around players in Chet Holmgren and Scotty Barnes. I think my team is very, very good all around. I love the way, and the fact that I was able to get my boy Scotty Barnes on this team, you love to see it. You love to see it. Let us know down below what you guys think. Who has the better between myself or Jay? Let us know down below what you guys think of our drafts down below. Yeah. But yeah, Jay, we have finally reached the end of this episode. A longer episode, but we had to get our stuff in about these new prospects, man. What do you tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Bro, I hope y'all respect the game. I mean, me and TV don't talk NBA draft and college stuff throughout the season, but when it came time to lock in, we both try to do our homework. We try to do our thing and really put our pedal to the metal in terms of getting this locked in before the NBA draft comes. Now, obviously, we're going to lock in on this a lot more after the draft is over. I think we have a potential for a lot of draft night trades. We say that every year, and then we kind of get finessed, but I think this might be a really interesting year with it, considering all the different placements. I know this is not a highly regarded draft class, but I think there's a lot of guys who are going to be good and are going to play out the gate. Maybe not high minutes, but are going to play valuable minutes. And that matters a lot more with a class like this, where there's no outstanding rookie talent that just hovers above the rest. My favorite guys, in case I didn't really spell it out, I love Alex Sarr to Washington. I hope Ron Holland falls to the Bulls, and Ryan Dunn is going to guard your mama from the parking lot. He's going to be one of the most dangerous defenders in the entire draft class. I love him as another prospect as well. And I can't wait, man. The day is almost here. Wednesday is around the corner, 8 p.m. We're going to be locked in on the draft. I'm gonna be trying to post our stuff all throughout the draft. Obviously, me and TV might do some instant reaction stuff after the draft is over, just some like quick thoughts on where certain guys landed. And of course, you guys are gonna get a podcast after it's over because I mean, come on, we can't do the mock draft and not give our thoughts on the real draft. What are we talking about here? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So this is where the offseason in the 2020, this is where the 2024-2025 offseason really starts, is the NBA draft. This is what kicks off our offseason. This is how we get to have the most fun.
100%. This is just the start of it. Again, we went through so many guys here, so you got our thoughts on a lot of the people that we are very interested in his draft. I mean, Jay listed some of his guys that I like. I'm just to throw some of my guys out there. Dalton Connect, love him as a shooter. Tijane Staloon, love to see him hopefully as a member of the Toronto Raptors eventually. And then freaking KJ Simpson. Be on the lookout for him as a potential late first round pick. But yeah, we have all these guys that we're gonna look out for. Look out for more NBA draft content on the TikToks and Instagrams, and of course, be on the lookout on this page for a new episode after the draft where we break down everything, and also previewing free agency, which is just next week. So It's gonna be crazy. We have that coming up. We have some potential WNBA episodes coming too, so be on the lookout for that. We have a lot of stuff coming to you this offseason, and of course, with the NBA being done, there's gonna be some dead periods at the time, but we're gonna provide you with the best episodes ever. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Remember to check out our individual socials, or the Hit Your Free Throws Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, on the podcast networks. And yeah, we appreciate all your support. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.